Mathematically speaking, every Pokemon has to be somebody's favorite, right? Using the Pokemon Go total amount of downloads number, which is 678 million by the way, as a figure for how many Pokemon fans there are, that figure outnumbers the amount of Pokemon by 661,464 times. Yes, I know that was a lot of numbers. Even if you don't like the 678 million figure as a number for the amount of fans there are, it doesn't change the fact that the difference between the amount of Pokemon fans and the amount of Pokemon is just so massive that surely every Pokemon has a trainer that calls it its favorite, right? Well, I don't believe so. Some of these guys are so irrelevant and outclassed that I can't even envision a pathway that leads to them being somebody's favorite. Even widely disliked Pokemon may have had enough screen time to be able to make enough of an impact on some stupid-ass kid to the point where it's now their favorite. I was kinda one of those kids myself. While Simisage isn't one of my absolute top dog favorites, I do genuinely really like him and the rest of the Unovan monkeys because to me, a stupid ass kid at the time, a free Pokemon that cooks the first gym is just awesome. Yes, as a kid, I ended up beating Pokemon Black and White with 2 level 70s, those being Emboar and Simisage. That right there is what I mean by a pathway to being somebody's favorite. Even hated or bad Pokemon may have had enough screen time to be able to make an impact on somebody out there. Unpheasant is one of my least favorite Pokemon because it is hideous and bad, but at the same time it's a Route 1 bird, so some kid that loves birds might have played Black and White for the first time, caught a Pidove, and now Unpheasant is their favorite Pokemon. Today we will be scraping through the bottom of the barrel of Game Freak's 1000 plus monster designs to find out which one is the most irrelevant. My only stipulation for this video is that I won't be talking about any middle or basic stage Pokemon just to make it more interesting. If you think this video sucks and hate me, here is Bulbapedia's least searched for Pokemon list that is just jam-packed with middle and basic stages to already pretty irrelevant Pokemon. Their list is potentially more accurate than what we're even going to talk about today. Actually, I don't even know if that Bulbapedia list is more accurate because they have Patrat super high on it, but when I was in like 2nd grade, I genuinely, not lying here, knew some kid who was doing a Watchog solo run. But yeah, that's enough about that. Let's instead dive into the world of Pokemon irrelevancy. The first Pokemon I'll be bullying today is Masquerain. Now, originally I was going to put Mothim here, but then I remembered that popular PokeTuber A-Drive had Mothim as his channel mascot for a while there, so that kind of puts a hole in that plan. But the reasonings for why either one of those two Pokemon would make it into a video like this are largely the same. As a kid, my experience with the Hoenn region was mostly spent on my copy of Pokemon Emerald, and for those of you who don't know, myself included, Surskit and Masquerain are just totally unobtainable in that game. It doesn't get much better in its debut games, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, as it's the rarest encounter on almost all of the 6 routes it's available on. It's not only totally possible, but it's probably pretty common to play through all of the original Gen 3 and never once see the dialogue, "A wild Surskit appeared," show up. Now obviously a Pokemon being rare doesn't alone make it irrelevant. Ralts is a 4% encounter on 1 route in the entire game, but if you've ever used Gardevoir in the original Gen 3, you know how insanely strong it is, and that experience alone can lead to it being somebody's favorite. Feebas is from the same game and is arguably the rarest Pokemon ever, but that rarity makes it more memorable. It helps too that Milotic is a great design and a great Pokemon, and it's also Wallace's ace, which that alone gives it more important screen time than Masquerain has ever had. The Hoenn remakes actually do make it slightly more relevant, as now you're able to catch a full-grown Masquerain, not just Surskits, but it doesn't change the fact that Masquerain also unfortunately kinda sucks. I didn't know this before writing this video, but apparently Masquerain was buffed, yes, buffed, in Gen 7. Yes, this bug type that still to this day is not very good was even worse in both iterations of its debut region. It doesn't help that this thing is made even more irrelevant because of Beautyfly's existence. It's a better bug flying type that is significantly more accessible and evolves earlier. The only combat niche I can see for this guy is that it's the only Sticky Webs user that gets access to the ability Intimidate. But even then, nowadays Pokemon like Araquanid, Galvantula, and Ribombee eat this thing's lunch as Sticky Web users. If Masquerain kept Surskit's bug water type, it could have had that going for it as a unique thing for a while, or at least until Araquanid came around, but as is, it's just another bad bug flying type. Seriously, Generation 1's Scyther outclasses this thing on basically every level combat-wise. I haven't gone through every single trainer in the game to see how many trainers use Masquerain, but I know for a fact it is not in the flying type gym at all, and because it loses its water typing when it evolves, it's not in the Pseutopolis gym either. I cannot stress enough how insanely irrelevant Masquerain is. The only reason it isn't the Pokemon this video was made about is because it's a pretty cute little guy, and honestly, the more I look at it while I've been writing this video, the more I almost want to like it. If Masquerain is your favorite Pokemon, please let me know in the comments genuinely why that is. And let's move on to honorable mention number 2. So unfortunately, newer Pokemon have a higher chance of ending up on a list like this. It's just because they've maybe only been around for a game or two, and who knows how relevant they were in their 1 or 2 appearances. Older Pokemon have had time to be relevant in games other than its debut, or had time to be cool in a side game or something like that. Funnily enough, this Pokemon is simultaneously an old one, a new one, and relevant in its debut, and still finds a way to make this list. I'm talking about Stantler/Wurdeer. Starting with Stantler, this guy just does nothing. It's a pure normal one-stage Pokemon that in its debut game has multiple other more interesting pure normal one-stagers in Miltank, Dunsparce, and kinda Girafarig. Its stats kinda suck, and nowadays we have a much more interesting deer Pokemon with Sawsbuck. If you expand the deer category of Pokemon to quadruped mammals, then Tauros and Bouffalon are significantly better and more interesting normal types. Stantler is literally a deer. That is it. It's not in Whitney's gym, and the only memory 99.9% of players are gonna have of this guy are just how much of a bitch it is to catch. First, this guy will intimidate you, and then he'll spam Hypnosis at you trying to put you to sleep, and then he's gonna spam a pretty decently strong stomp attack and just try and flinch you out. On top of it being an annoying thing to fight, it's only available in 2 routes in its debut game. Remember, Johto is a game with 2 regions, 2 routes. It also has the same catch rate as some legendaries. Yes, legendaries. I think I have higher odds of hitting a deer on a country road than actually catching this thing. Wurdeer, while being more relevant, ultimately doesn't save it from the fate it had sealed for itself the second it was announced to be a Stantler evolution. Like, this guy basically appears every single time you click the plus button in Legends Arceus, and it's still left no impression on me. I honestly don't have much else to say about Wurdeer, as it just kinda exists. I honestly think it was made just to be a ride Pokemon for Legends Arceus and nothing else. I'm a big fan of all of the Hisuian designs, both the new forms and the outright new Pokemon, and I think Wurdeer does nothing to stand out among them. It doesn't help that Wurdeer was also immediately outswagged by Farigiraf, which similarly to Wurdeer is another normal psychic evolution added onto a Gen 2 basic Pokemon. And that's all I got for Wurdeer. It's a Pokemon, for sure. If I made this video 3 years earlier, I would have had Stantler here instead, but unfortunately for Wurdeer, it exists. Like I said earlier with Masquerain, if this guy is your favorite Pokemon, not a Pokemon you like, but your favorite, please let me know in the comments below. I didn't say this in the intro, but this video wasn't made to flame people whose favorite Pokemon I'm going to be talking about today. I just personally cannot see the pathway as to how it would end up your favorite. With that being said though, let's move into the honorable mentions for our honorable mentions lightning round before we have our big reveal. Klinklang was one of the 3 horsemen of bad Gen 5 Pokemon designs alongside Vanillix and Garbodor, but unlike those 2, which I think are pretty decent, Klinklang is just lame. It's mediocre, it evolves weirdly late, and in the same place you can catch Klink, you can catch a better and more interesting Steel type in Ferrothorn. The only thing memorable about this guy is that his signature move, Gear Grind, had a funny animation to 6-year-old me. Because yes, even as a kid, I tried using this thing and thought it was lame. Other more mediocre and forgettable Pokemon didn't end up making the cut because they had a pretty cute or cool design, but Klinklang is literally just gears. I almost put Volbeat and Illumise where Masquerain is in this video, but because they're a little bit more accessible and also they're notable because they're a duo together, they didn't make the cut. Lumineon used to be the face of irrelevant Pokemon. Like, as a kid, I swear to God, every top 10 most forgettable Pokemon video I clicked on had this guy in the top 3. And while it fits all of the criteria for being irrelevant, like it's an uncommon Pokemon, it's not particularly good, and its design is basic, like it's literally just a fish. It's a pretty cutely designed fish, so it's safe today. Arctovish is a Pokemon that I look at and I just don't understand the anatomy of it at all. Like, I don't know what I'm looking at, so naturally I don't understand whatever hypothetical appeal this Pokemon could have, but it's a part of the Gen 8 Fossil Fusion group thing, so I'm sure some sick person out there has it as their favorite. I want to talk about the Pikachu clones, but I couldn't decide who to put between Togedemaru and Morpeko, so this spot is for both of them. I honestly think that even though a Pokemon being a Pikachu clone alone gives them something notable, most of the recent ones have been less cool and less interesting than just basic Pikachu. Plusle and Minun are a cute pair, and Pachirisu had the most iconic VGC performance ever. Emolga can fly and is basically Elisa's signature Pokemon. But in my opinion, from Dedenne onwards, Game Freak takes that Pikachu clone fan moniker a little bit too seriously. Dedenne only avoids getting put into this list because I just personally really like him. I think he's a cute little guy. Rabsca is a Pokemon that exists. Rellor is a pretty cool concept for a bug type. It's just a shame that Rabsca is maybe the Pokemon that is the most detached from the form that came before it. It doesn't help that Orbeetle is a way more interesting bug psychic type that came in just the generation prior. Everybody, say hi to Rosie. She walked on in on me while I was recording. Hi.
Hi, Rosie.
I wasn't quite sure what to do with regional variants since they occupy the same dex number, and then that's a whole semantic argument right there. I decided to just mention the biggest stinker of all the regional forms, and that is Galarian Stunfisk. Now, normal Stunfisk was like a meme there for a while, so I'm sure some band kid out there has it as his favorite Pokemon, but the Galarian version just has no upside. This thing sucks. I wanted to put a legendary Pokemon here, and I was thinking about Zarude, but then I remembered that Zarude had a whole ass movie, so I'm sure there's some kid out there whose first experience with Pokemon was the Zarude movie, and now he's like obsessed. So this spot will be going to Volcanio. Oh wait, he had a movie too, didn't he? This spot is Fione's to lose now because I am confident there is nobody who really gives a shit about this thing. And with that being said, let's get on to... Dude. Don't play with me like that. I just elbowed there. Do not do that. No, if you fall, oh boy, I'll be mad if you fall. With that being said, let's move on to the Big Kahuna. I came up with the idea for this video after just looking through the decks with a friend of mine who's a pretty lifelong fan of the series, and we were just talking about different Pokemon, reminiscing, and all that good stuff. And once I got to this very particular Pokemon in the decks, I thought to myself, I don't think he knows who this guy is. And I quizzed him on it, and yeah, he didn't know who this Pokemon was at all. And the Pokemon I tried to have him guess the name of was this guy right here. Grapploct was really set up by Game Freak to end up in a video like this for multiple different reasons, and I'll explain them all right here. First, it is only catchable in 3 locations in the entire franchise. One of them is the middle of Route 9 in Galar, specifically the middle in this area called Sirchester Bay. If you're too early or too late in the route, the pre-evolution to Grapploct Clobbopus will not appear. The other 2 locations you can find a Clobbopus are Courageous Bay and Loop Lagoon, which are both areas that you can only play in the DLC. Which I have not played. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because I think Sword and Shield are pretty easily the worst mainline Pokemon games, so naturally I haven't bought the DLC. But I don't think these 2 locations being in a DLC I haven't played really matters. I think most people end up with a favorite Pokemon while they're relatively young, or at least young enough to where they won't have a debit card to easily buy the DLCs. Maybe kids are more courageous nowadays, but I hated asking my mom for a credit card, even if I had the cash to trade for the purchase. Even then, I was not asking for mom's credit card to buy some shitty-ass Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC. However, it is not only pretty inaccessible, but it's also super uncommon to see enemy trainers have it at all. There are 2 regular trainer fights in the whole game that have Grapploct, those being Black Belt Carter and Gentleman Glenn. Besides that, it's all post-game or DLC battles. Well, and I guess Gym Leader B uses Grapploct on her Champions Cup team, but if you can remember, Generation 8 added version-exclusive gym leaders, and she's exclusive to Sword, which is not the version of the game I own. It is totally possible to beat Pokemon Generation 8 and see Grapploct/Clobbopus 3 to 4 times, and maybe even as low as never. Not only is this Pokemon very much out of sight, but it is also out of mind, as I'm not thinking about this thing because it's not very good. First off, it's a pure fighting type, which is just very saturated saturated and hard to stand out with at this point. Pokemon nailed the pure fighting type all the way back in Gen 1 with Machamp and the Hitmons, so if you're not cooler or better than those Pokemon, then
you serve no purpose.
It's a shame too, because Grapploct looks like it should be a water fighting or a dark fighting type, but it's just stuck in this boring pure fighting type body. This shit evolves after learning the dark type move Taunt, like I just don't understand why. If it was either one of those type combinations, it would probably not be in this video at all, because you would have an actual reason to hunt this thing down and it would be more special in combat. Grapploct is in a game with the wild area that gives you access to tons of better fighting types almost immediately. Like, I don't understand who this guy is for. In battle, while I'm not personally well versed in using Grapploct at all, I look at its stats and go, ugh. It's one of those Pokemon with a high attack stat and nothing else that's really remarkable. Like, even its signature move Octolock is just alright. Octolock traps your Pokemon in for a few turns, and while your Pokemon is trapped, their defenses will be lowered each turn, which sounds pretty decent, but then you remember the AI in-game never switches out anyways, and you're probably better off just hitting with a strong fighting move. Even competitively, Grapploct had zero motion, as it's not strong enough to be a super big threat, and it's not bulky enough to make the best use of Octolock. When it was in the game, it was in the ZU tier of Smogon, and I don't think it was relevant in VGC at all. Like, I've never seen Wolfie bring him up, so I don't know. Oh, did you hear that? I said when it was in the game, because Grapploct didn't make it in the Scarlet and Violet and didn't make it in the Legends Arceus either. Even Game Freak knows no one cares about this thing, because they totally could have done it. It's not like they didn't have the HD Switch-ready model right there. So it's not relevant in its debut game, it's not good competitively, it's not even good in-game. So what does it have left? All it has left is its design, which is totally alright. It's not bad by any means. It would probably be better if it had a darker water typing attached to it. We already have an octopus Pokemon, and while yes, Octillery isn't the greatest by any means, it's been around for 20 plus years. So people who love octopi enough to the point where an octopus Pokemon would automatically be their favorite probably already made that favorite choice with Octillery. I know Malamar is a squid, not an octopus, but it is also cooler and more interesting than both of the Pokemon I just said. The only pathway I can see to Grapploct being somebody's favorite is that they're a new player who started playing around generation 6, 7, and 8. This hypothetical person must also have a super special interest in octopi. This person must have came across Grapploct in-game at all, like seen it or caught it. And then this hypothetical person must look at Grapploct and choose it over all of the other Pokemon designs. And that is a person that I simply don't believe exists. You may think I'm being too harsh on Grapploct, and maybe I am, but even if you like this Pokemon a lot, is it your favorite? Like, ever? Maybe Grapploct fan 2013 will end up in my comments just pissed off because I'm shitting on his favorite Pokemon, but even then, I might just think you're trolling me. If this thing is truly, genuinely your favorite Pokemon, please tell me why in the comments, because maybe I'm missing something. Maybe he was like really hype in the anime or something like that. I'll even give you permission to shit on my favorite Pokemon, Shedinja, even though Shedinja has a cooler type, cooler lore, cooler design, cooler evolution method, cooler ability / gimmick, and other things as well. And that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed me following up my most positive video with my most toxic and inflammatory one. I like to keep people on their toes around here. I honestly don't hate any of the Pokemon I talked about today, besides Morpeko. That thing is shameless and garbage. But I don't want that to be what people take away from this video. I wanted this to be more of an analysis on what makes Pokemon irrelevant. Like, Grapploct is a total Game Freak fumble. If you made Clobbopus available earlier and then gave Grapploct like a fighting or water typing, it would be a lot better. Its dex entry literally says that it goes to the sea after battle. Like, how is it not a water type? Do that and then add a cool and offensive ability / move to this guy, and now you've got one of the most fun to use Gen 8 Pokemon. And it doesn't even have to be anything with how it performs in battle. Malamar is fun and memorable because of its evolution method. Game Freak gave Grapploct zero chance of leaving an impression on the player besides it having a solid design. I know I tweeted it, said it on stream, and made a YouTube post about it, but thanks again for the support on the Golden Boy video. I never would have thought that a kind of personal video on a semi-niche 90s anime would have had the reach it did, but thank you again. My friends have been telling me that I've been forgetting to tell people to like and subscribe at the end of each video, and honestly, they're probably right looking at my subscribed versus unsubscribed viewer stats. Like, they're honestly pretty funny. If you want to see more from me, please hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 1K, which means I'll be able to start putting ads on these videos, so you may not be excited, but I am very excited. I also have memberships now unlocked, so if you feel so inclined as to send me some money, I would really appreciate it. I don't have any benefits as of now, but once I get one single member, I'll have one of those fancy scrolling bars that YouTubers play at the end of all their videos. But that's all I got for you today. If you made it this far in the video, you know I love you, and peace.